What's up everyone? So if you've been following me on this channel for some time, then you know this isn't a new build, but when I first posted my Arceus MOC, I didn't have a review video of it yet, and some of you have since asked me to make one. I also got some questions about the build, and I wanted to take this chance to answer them, and talk about the updates I've made since posting the original video. For all my new viewers, the instructions and parts file to build this MOC are linked in the description below, and the proceeds just help support me and this channel. I do not sell the physical model, so what you're paying for is only for the parts file and instructions. So the first question many of you have asked is how much does this cost? So to answer that, at the time of recording this video, just the parts themselves are estimated to cost around $85 to $95 Canadian. This also reflects the new parts that I've added with the tweaks I've made to the MOC, and for anyone that has purchased this in the past, send me a message privately either on my store or Instagram, and I'll send over the updated instructions and parts file free of charge. This estimate is based on my location in Canada and does not include shipping and handling, so your final cost may vary. So taking a look at the overall build for Arceus, it uses a total of 866 pieces, and is one of the tallest MOCs I've designed and built to this day. It's so tall in fact that it doesn't fit my usual background, so you get to see my back wall, and it's barely able to fit into the frame. I think that this, my Regigigas and Torterra MOCs are three of my largest Pokemon builds, and coincidentally they're all from Gen 4 as well. Arceus was a Pokemon I didn't think I'd be able to build at the time, since looking at the official artwork, it has many design elements, curves, and features which seemed overwhelming to me to try and transfer over into LEGO. I think what helped me to start process it was dissecting the design into simpler elements that I felt confident enough to start building, and then working from that momentum to tackle the larger and more complex parts later. I also referenced countless toys and 3D models just to get a better sense of how it looked at different angles as well. Also, in case you're wondering, I haven't looked yet to see if you could build each of the types of Arceus when it's holding a specific plate, but I think you could still build some of them, at least the ones that use the more common colors in LEGO. I know some of you have asked if I plan on doing the Sinnoh Box Legendaries, and the answer is, I will look to at some point in the future, but since they're all roughly the same size as this, each one will take quite some time to design, build, and test. Not to mention, I'll still need some time to make the instructions for each one as well. Maybe one day I'll have a LEGO Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina to accompany my LEGO Arceus MOC. So now we'll take a closer look at the legs, and each leg is pretty much the same build, mirrored on both sides, but the main difference between the front and rear legs are just the knee connections. The front knees are connected slightly closer to the front, since I wanted it to be able to bend much farther than the rear ones. Before making this video, I took some time to reinforce some of the leg connections, since in the past, just moving them at the hips would cause parts of it to fall off easily. It's hard to tell what the differences are if you compare the early version to this one, since I tried to ensure that the final look would be the same throughout. In terms of articulation, you're able to rotate at the hips at different angles, since they use larger ball joints, and they have a pretty decent range of motion. However, you're only able to bend the knees on one axis just due to the way they're connected. The front knees have a higher range of motion when bending it back, whereas the rear knees are able to bend forward a bit more. However, when you bend the back, they're a bit more limited compared to the front. In the previous iteration, you weren't really able to have it stand on just its legs, since the feet are very narrow, and the connections are too weak so it would fall apart. But with the modifications I've made, and with a bit of patience, you're able to have it stand on its feet, but just at very select angles. I would not recommend displaying like this, since the feet can slip very easily, so I usually display it on this custom stand, which is also included in the instructions. Speaking of the stand, one of the biggest changes you may notice is that the design of the stand is almost completely different. Previously, it only had one column, and I tried to attach it to the least conspicuous location, which was at the bottom right before the center ring. Unfortunately, this wasn't the best place to attach it since it's a bit off from the center of gravity, so if you nudged it slightly, it would fall over easily, and I had to be very careful when I was handling it. This new stand uses pretty much the same transclear pieces as the original one, with a few new ones added, and obviously there are two columns now, so the part count is a bit higher. The front column is right between the front two legs here, whereas the second one is close to where the original one used to be, but it's pushed back now in between the center of the rear legs. The overall height of the stand is shorter than the original to help cut down the part count as well. Now with this new design, it's much more sturdy, and you're able to pick up the MOC and move it around without worrying about it falling over. And I have to say it feels much more solid now. For the torso, I didn't really change much for this part of the build from the original design, but I think the most challenging part was trying to figure out how to capture the look and shape of its iconic ring. For the sections that stick out, I did consider having them built using swivel hinge plates with some tiles and wedge plates at first, but I didn't like how choppy it looked, and if you look at it from the back you see all those anti-studs. I decided to brick build it with some 1x1 bricks and curved slopes so that they would have a smoother look on both sides, but it did take some trial and error just to get the angles and spacing right. I think the key was using these yellow tab pieces, which helped to get the right angle, and they're the only things attaching these sections to the body. The sub-assembly for these are the same on both sides, and I use these ratcheted hinge plates since they're able to keep the subsections at a consistent angle, and they add some more rigidity, which helps with the durability. The curved slopes with the ratcheted hinge plates help to finish off its rounded look, and I think the overall look matches pretty well with the official design. I will say that these sub-assemblies are pretty fragile, so just be careful when you're moving around as they can fall off easily. I decided to use these minifigure gem pieces in trans green since I thought they captured the look of the jewels well, but they can look a bit small compared to the size of the ring. So if that bothers you, then an alternative could be using a 1x2 trans green plate with some trans green cheese switch slopes on top. For the front portion where the neck connects, this section is fixed at a right angle, and I tried to squeeze all the details here as best as I could. I mainly scaled around these side spikes, which use some standard slope pieces. The front was a bit tricky to design since its dark gray underbelly continues up from between the legs, and I wanted to transition seamlessly around this angle. The rest of the neck isn't too complicated, and I just used some curved slopes and slopes to finish off the rest of the shaping coming up to the head. Coming around to the back, the tail is built in two subsections and is only attached to the body with a couple of clip tiles. I tried to cover off the gaps around this connection with some slopes and curved slope, so this does limit its range of motion a bit, and you're only able to rotate it slightly up and down. This is one of the features that didn't change with the updated design, and I tried to keep the white and dark gray color blocking consistent as the tail tapers and flows out to the end. Lastly, taking a closer look at the head, this is also one of the parts of the design that was pretty fragile and would have parts fall off easily during handling. I did make some part swaps and reinforce the internal structure, so it should be less of an issue now, and overall you don't really notice the differences on the outside. The head was a bit tricky to design since it has many subtle layers and details to it, like this yellow keystone at the front, and having to make sure that the white portions of the head stick out slightly more than the dark gray parts as well. I think I spent a good amount of time working out the details for the face first, since I knew it had to be smaller, and then thinking of different techniques to build up the white portions around it. Another challenge was trying to get this tail on the back of its head to taper and flow towards the end. This detail will probably be better captured with some custom stickers, since it's a bit blocky on the sides, but I think it still gets the point across. The entire head is attached onto the body using a ratcheted hinge plate for a stronger connection, but like the tail, I tried to cover off a lot of the gaps around it so you can't really pose it around, and it's only able to move its head up and down one click. If you remove the slope at the back of the neck, you should be able to increase its range of motion, but then you're left with a slightly awkward gap there. Then as usual, I used some different slopes, curved slopes, wedges, and tiles to finish off the rest of the shaping for the head. Finally, for a sense of scale, this is how it looks compared to a minifigure. And as an added bonus, this is how it looks compared to my custom Akari MOC from LEGO Arceus. You'd also have Akari ride Arceus, even though it's not a feature in the game. So that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on this MOC, as well as any suggestions for my next build, or if you would like me to revisit one of my older MOCs as well. And I may just pick yours for a future video. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.